Hey, what's up? So today I wanted to go over some of the patch notes for Fellowship coming over in November 6th, which is going to be tomorrow at this point in time. If you guys hadn't seen this, I'm also going to cover the dev interview Reddit post from Surrender at 20. Thank you for posting this. I haven't watched the dev stream, but it has a little bit of information on what's to come in the game. So I'll go over kind of some of the stuff that I saw here because I found it interesting. So starting out right now, they're going to be doing their maintenance. This is for the Halloween event. If you guys haven't got the skins, it looks like the event ends on November 13th. So be sure to do it by then if you're trying to get whatever skins that you have. Otherwise, they'll probably be disabled. I'm assuming you can use them after the Halloween event. That would be my assumption. But going back to the patch notes, we're going to talk about just some of the changes. Nothing too crazy, I don't think, in this patch. Some bug fixes, a couple of buffs. So for starters, Helena is going to be getting a health buff from her stamina. So her stamina is going to be a little more valuable. Also, the bleed from sweeping strikes is now going to reduce all damage dealt by afflicted enemies by 10% for its duration. So this is definitely new, and it's going to be nice. It just makes it a little bit more secure to use this ability. Also, the bleed from sweeping strikes is now going to reduce all damage dealt by afflicted enemies by 10%, which is pretty big. Just all around making Helena a little bit tankier. There's also a hotfix. I didn't actually know about this, so I'm just going to mention it. But her toughness will now not be reduced while the absorb from empowered shield slam is active on her. So when you use hold the line and use your shield slam, you get that shield. Your toughness won't be reduced while within that. So that can actually be a nice thing to min-max as well when you're playing Helena. For Mako, they buffed her Sibling of Earth a little bit. So on higher difficulties, the Twin Souls Sibling of Earth or whatever would just get like one shot. Looks like they've adjusted her legendary cloak. It looks like maybe a little bit of a nerf on it. And they buffed her legendary necklace to make it a little bit stronger. A bunch of tooltip updates. I can let you guys read through those if you'd like. Pause the video and you can just go through them, or I'll have a link to the patch notes in the description. For Sylvie, there's going to be a little bit of a healing buff here, and I believe a little bit of a damage buff later on too. So yeah, Nettaboth damage buff. You're also getting a second charge, a life pedal. I've never played Sylvie, so this might be interesting for you, might not. Who knows? Sprouting Nettles procs were reduced to 2 per minute, and it was 4, but now it increases the critical strike chance of Nettable by 400%. So maybe that ends up being a good thing, maybe it ends up being a bad thing. 400% sounds like a lot. I don't know what it was before. And Symbiosis now increases Prickly Vines damage by 12% for each player that has a pink Flutterfly active on them. So yeah, it looks like it's just mostly a healing buff and a damage buff, and you're actually seeing the same thing from Vigor right here. This does seem like a common trend. They want to make healers and tanks a little bit more powerful. I do think that both roles are very scary to play. Particularly healers being better also makes DPS a little bit more healthy as well. So it's going to be nice if you feel like you're a DPS and you're fighting for your life in some of these dungeons. This might be why. Maybe healers were undertuned a little bit. So, and then mostly some small bug changes to DPS here. Looks like they made the legendary necklace just a little bit better for Tariq. They buffed his legendary necklace to now deal 450% of its damage, where it was 150%, and now it's dealt over 24 seconds instead of 18 seconds. It does sound like extra damage. I played a little bit of this guy. I've never had the legendary necklace, but now the bleed from it can no longer critically strike. So I'm assuming that ends up being like the difference between it doing like 300% damage versus it doing like 450% damage, right? So it does sound like it's an overall buff, and then you don't have to worry about the critical strike factor. Because I guess before, if you were trying to min-max it, you would probably want it to crit most often, or you would hope so. So now it's just going to be more consistent, and it should just consistently do more damage. And it no longer double dips in damage bonuses, expertise, etc. So I'm not actually sure if that ends up coming out to be a damage buff or a damage nerf. I'm assuming it will be a buff, but maybe there's some math that works out there where it's not. The necklace also had strength on it before, and now it has stamina like all other necklaces. So if it had strength before and they're making these changes, I would end up assuming maybe it ends up being an actual nerf theoretically, but it also makes sense that they would want all of their necklaces to have stam. I don't know why this one would have strength suddenly. So just a little bit of weird stuff going on with him. That's some ability timers. I'm probably not going to notice any of these things, but yeah, if you want to take a look at those, again, link in the description. They also changed some things in Sailor's Abyss. They made it so the Corsairs stop playing their voice lines. So if you guys have ever heard it, they go "oh" like every 5 seconds, which is kind of funny. They also fixed an issue with Warlord Brog in Stormwatch. If you guys know, that's the boss that you fight him on the bridge, and then you fight him back home or whatever when he runs away. You get him to like 80% in the first phase. Now he won't actually heal when you go to fight him in the second phase, which, you know, I never actually thought about, but that makes sense because I feel like we would always get him to 80% and then we would go to fight him and he'd be at 100% again. It never really occurred to me. Something that did occur to me is this is probably one of the hardest bosses in the game, especially to pug. just because there's a lot of like weird overlaps that can happen the longer it goes on. There's a lot of kicks. You have to kind of execute like a perfect kick rotation. Otherwise, sometimes you might just choose to one-shot somebody in the group. There's a lot of damage that happens. It's a very scary tank boss, honestly. That frontal hits really freaking hard. And then if you're like solo soaking too, there's just a lot of damage that happens to you. So it can be very scary. So Warlord Brog, yeah, he's a scary dude. And it looks like he's going to be a little bit less scary, about 20% less health. So we'll make the fight a lot easier. So that's for the patch notes. This patch is going to hit tomorrow. Aside from that, I wanted to kind of go over some of these developer stream notes. I guess there's a developer stream that happened where they talked about some of their plans and features that they are looking to add. I was going to kind of like sum up some of them. So eternal queues, they're going to be looking into it. They want it to be a thing. It looks like they have no ETA. Basically right now, when you get to eternal, you can only queue in a 4-stack, which really sucks because if you don't have 3 friends to play with, then you're just not going to be able to play. So that's why for a lot of the times, for at least for myself, I just end up playing with my friends and we just run like Paragon or something, and we just run Ransack like a billion times. I don't know. I got very bored of that dungeon. I just want to push Eternal. I don't have friends to push Eternal with, so kind of sucks, right? They're also trying to fix the lever issue. So there's a problem right now that I'm sure everyone has experienced, especially if you're a DPS, where people will queue into a dungeon, they'll die right away, and then they'll just leave the dungeon immediately because there are no consequences. This is something that I've done. I'm going to self-report a little bit here. I've done this as a tank because I didn't realize as a tank that DPS queues are as bad as they are. Now I've been playing Artios and I've experienced it, and it sucks. So I wanted to apologize formally to anyone that I've done that to. Basically, yeah, tanks will just like automatically queue for dungeons, and then they'll get into the dungeon and they'll go run in, pull way too big, die, and then leave. And it just sucks. It's like probably one of the worst things of the game. It might actually kill the game. So I really hope they come up with a solution for this, because it was really not fun as a DPS to wait in queue for 20 minutes just to have your tank run in, die, and then like leave. So not fun. Hope they fix that. They also want to add queue incentives for tanks, mainly the option of adding another tank to the mix. So they have Mako, they have Helena. Give us another one. Maybe people will play it more. Now, this additional tank thing is mentioned twice, actually, in this post, so I'm assuming it's very high priority. Seems like that's something that's coming very soon. They don't have a TLDR, but they say sooner rather than later down here. So, yeah. Expect a new tank relatively soon. Social features, so they are adding guilds, so that's something that's going to be fun. You can build up a guild of all of your friends, right? They're going to fix chat, because right now, if you guys have tried to whisper somebody, or sometimes you send like a party message, like while people are leaving dungeon, and just won't go through. So that's really nice. So definitely fix that. That being said, I don't feel like this is like this is their top priority. I guess that makes sense. Like, I don't really know from a like designer perspective. I use Discord to communicate with people, but I guess like when you think about it, like, you ever like play with somebody in game and you like make a friend or something, like in a dungeon or in any game ever, and then like if you aren't able to like seal the deal on that connection before they leave the party, sometimes that just like goes away and you'll like never talk to that person like ever again. So like I think that, yeah, making this a top priority, I guess that makes sense, because like the friends that you make for games from games is kind of the most important thing about games. I would not be playing the games that I play today if I didn't have the people I played them with. So I understand that. Minimap, it existed before. It's possible to make a return. I think that this is a good change. I have many times pulled a boss before realizing everybody was there, and then somebody gets locked out of the room. Really annoying. Happens a lot in Wormheart. So yeah, it'd be nice to have a minimap just to know where people are. Like, I don't understand why it doesn't need to exist. Like, it feels like it would just be like a nice thing to have, but maybe they don't want to add it for one reason or another. Ping system, considered a new ping system. I think pings would be nice. Right now, they already have the markers. Having some sort of a way to ping could be really nice on some bosses, like the Empyrean Sands boss. I'm not going to lie. I pull that boss a lot, and I just like, I forget to move out of the middle every single time. Don't know why. I know I'm not the only one, because I've seen other tanks do it too. It's just, yeah, sometimes it would be nice to have a ping. Have a little heads up. In-game MDT, I don't think that needs to exist. Just use like a web page or something. So maybe it would be nice. I don't know. I don't think it's super necessary. Raids are planned. So I don't know what those raid sizes are going to be. You can kind of talk about it in the comments. I think like an 8-player raid sounds cool. Just double the party size, right? So you have 4, maybe 2 tanks, maybe 2 healers, and then like what, 6 DPS, or what does that come out to? 4 DPS. So yeah, maybe that would be cool. They could go 10, but I feel like you don't need to go 10. Like the more people that you need, the harder it's going to be to do them, right? And you don't want to run into a situation where it's like difficult to pug for a lot of these raids. I think raids would be super cool. I think that it's already really interesting. Like when I first did the Tides capstone or whatever at the end of Champion, right? The one with like the beaches and stuff. When I first did that one with my friends, it was really fun. We were kind of under geared for it, and we ended up like progressing through it like one boss at a time. We didn't time it. I think we were like probably like an hour over time. It was like way over, right? But it was fun because like we went in, we were pretty under geared. We just decided we're gonna try this, right? And we progged like each boss together, and it was like a really good time. We're like looking up like, okay, like what are we supposed to do for this? And like we're trying to like react to stuff, and it was a really good time. I really enjoyed that. So the idea of doing that with more players sounds super awesome, right? And I think that this is what the game is going to live or die on, honestly, is their ability to add new content like that. Like give us more stuff to do. Because once you've done all of the dungeons and stuff and you've hit Eternal and you're like pushing through or whatever, you're full geared and stuff, you can min-max your character. But like the real thing that's going to get me coming back to this game is like new stuff. So like if they announce, hey, we got this new season where there's like this raid that you can build up to and do at the end, like that sounds really appealing to me. If you know anything about this channel, I play a lot of WoW. So I'm going to be I do stream WoW on Tuesdays and Thursdays as well. So like you're gonna be watching me progress through the WoW raid, right? It would be cool to progress through the Fellowship raid since I've been making a lot of Fellowship videos. So I really look forward to that. I hope that they add that. That sounds awesome. Less than 4-player content, no plans. I don't know what they would do. This game isn't WoW, right? In WoW, cool. You can go out, you can go do delves and like I don't know, collect like cosmetics and stuff like that. This is more of a dungeon crawler. It's supposed to be a group thing, so I don't think that they necessarily need to add that. I don't know, and some people might like something like that. I just don't think that the game needs to be that, right? I think the game should focus on what it is, right? Because they've absolutely nailed what they're doing so far. I don't think they need to be something that they're not, you know? PvP, no plans, but never say never. Yeah, again, like I don't think they need to be that. You know, it's just not my cup of tea there. But mismounts doesn't matter to me. Custom boss timer sounds. They're like what big wigs. Like I don't know if that needs to be a thing. Maybe it'd be nice. I don't know. All right, class stuff. So new classes. So this is the new tank that we're talking about. Top twos will be a new tank and a new healer. So DPS, you're gonna be stuck with the 5 for a little bit, sounds like. But yeah, tanks and healers, you can look forward to it. They are adjusting the difficulty curves. So I don't know if it's mentioned later in this post. I think it may be. It was actually this post right here. I missed it in the patch notes, so people are going to complain about that. But this is, I think, one of the biggest changes that is coming. So they are making it so you cannot queue into Adept until you are 80 item level. You cannot queue into Champion until you are 130 item level. It was up from 120. And you cannot queue into Paragon until you're 190. So you notice there's actually a 20 item level jump from the Contender to Adept. But now there's a 10 item level jump from the Champion and Paragon. So that's going to be kind of annoying, I think, for people who are leveling alts, is that you're going to have to get them a little bit higher item level to actually queue for this stuff. Although if you're doing it in a full party, maybe it's not that bad. But this will be really nice for those people who are kind of getting into these dungeons and just learning the game. They're getting used to it. If you're very new to the game, sometimes this jump from like Contender to Adept is actually really scary. Right? You go up to it and it's like, holy crap, this is hard. On top of this, the other thing to keep in mind with Adept is not only are they making it so like it's more difficult, like everything's hitting harder and stuff, but there's also new mechanics. They're just suddenly adding a bunch of new abilities, and you're having to deal with all that. Plus, everything hits harder. It's like all the bosses become real bosses. Is kind of like what happens. You know how like. I know the first time I fought the Empyrean Sands boss, it's like you kind of just sit in the middle and then he spawns orbs and then you do like the run out and stuff, but like it's not scary. The second time that you do it on Adept, you're now there's suddenly beams crossing the room and stuff. It's like holy crap, this is a real boss fight, right? And that I think they've done a good job of making the boss fights in these dungeons like actually like engaging. Difficult actually too. They're very difficult. But yeah, I think the jump up to Adept can be a little bit overwhelming. So I'm glad that they're fixing that, making it a little bit easier to get into. And that's actually hitting tomorrow, that update. So if you guys are already past this isn't going to be relevant to you. But if you're leveling else, it may become relevant. Some things like cursor options here included as well. And then talking about their like model for the game, what is their goal? And it looks like they're going to be doing seasonal resets. So that's going to mean things like your gear, your talents, and your abilities are going to reset, and you'll have to unlock them all again. This doesn't sound exciting because this is a game where you are like you're kind of like spending all this time getting your gear and your talents and stuff. So to some that might sound kind of weird, But something to keep in mind is that this does give the developers like options to change things up a lot, right? So maybe, for example, you're playing a class, you don't really like them all that much, or you think that there are things that should be changed. Next season, then you might get a whole new ability, right? It might just be added in, and there's not going to be any friction there in the sense that like you're losing something in the moment because you're losing everything, right? The whole class is being reset, all your talents and stuff. So as you gear it up, you're going to figure out new things, and like each class might feel a little bit new afterwards. So that might be cool, right? I'm here for it. I want to follow the developers wherever they're going to take us and to see what happens with this game, because so far, game's been awesome. So I've been having a lot of fun with it. So hopefully, whenever they do these seasonal resets, it'll continue to be cool, right? They're also going to be resetting gyms and stuff just so people don't like hoard stuff. So there's no reason to save your materials or your gyms and stuff for the next season. You don't need to build those up or you're like missing out, which is nice because it gives you less chores to do, right? You can just hop in at the start of a new season and you're not behind, right? So that'll be cool. Seasonal cosmetics and mounts will be kept permanently, which gives you new things to chase every season. So that way, you get your Season 1 rewards. You're going to keep your Season 1 rewards. So those things won't reset. Everything else will. They talked about legendary drop rates and stuff with like bad luck protection. The devs kind of want them to be random or feel rare, so it seems like that's probably not going to happen, but like maybe. It does kind of suck that it feels like a lot of the characters require a certain legendary to be good, but I also want to mention that the game is fairly new, right? And people are still experimenting with stuff, so there may be builds out there for these other legendaries that are good. Like people just aren't using them because everyone's talking about this other build. So I kind of do like the idea, like, something that's been fun for me with this game, with this launch, is like figuring out my own routes to do and, I don't know, messing around with my own builds and stuff. And while I have looked stuff up now and I am kind of doing what is like the meta build for these characters, it was fun early on where it's like, I don't know, if you get a legendary that is good for, so for, say for Helena, you get like the neck legendary, or I think it's the neck one that makes your shield throw do the shrapnel and it reduces the damage of enemies and stuff. I think there's potential with that one, you know? Like I've read it. It seems like you could get some good DRs there. 20% DR on all mobs, for like basically permanent uptime, it sounds like, would be pretty good, right? That sounds not bad at all. So, well, it's not the shockwave build and you may not do 1 billion damage like with the shockwave build. And it might hurt your survivability in the long run because you don't have your shields up as much. There's a lot of like benefits of the shockwave build, which is why people are doing it. The shield throw build might still be cool, you know, and I would be interested to try it. So that's something I'm probably going to look to do already. But I think that it's kind of, yeah, you kind of miss out on that. If you ever get to pick your guaranteed legendary or something like that, you're never going to experience that. So that's kind of like the idea behind things like this. I know I've heard the WoW devs talk about it in WoW too. So this is a completely different game. They might not feel the same way. Just throwing that out there. But they've talked about how there are a bunch of trinkets in the game that people just they'll never use. They're bad trinkets, right? And what is the purpose of these trinkets existing? It's kind of like the question, right? And the devs have answered things like, the purpose of those existing is because you want something like a stepping stone on your way to that like bis item, right? So we have this one. This one's pretty cool. Sounds kind of weird for that to be a legendary because it's a legendary, right? It feels like that should be like the peak of what you want to achieve. But I don't know. Maybe that's the reason. Maybe they want you to try out different things and they want builds to be unique and stuff. So. In-game store, no top priority, no date. Team size, so they have like 35 people on their team. Aside from that, there's some other stuff here. None of this is super relevant to me, but you can give it a look. Oh, I guess they also talked about like scrapping items and making it so you can like get items back, like restore items. They also like the option of locking an item so that you don't scrap it. So they don't really want to add something to restore it because maybe that's a pain in the butt. Because I guess they just have to like track that you had it at one point in time. It might be the annoying thing, but being able to lock an item, because I definitely have scrapped things on accident. I did it once. I almost did it last night actually on stream. Yeah, it can be annoying. Yeah, looks like that is pretty much everything here. So yeah, if this was helpful for you guys, if you're like interested in some of this stuff, let me know in the comments below. If you want to catch me live on stream, I've been streaming Fellowship pretty much every day actually. So you can definitely stop by. There will be a link for that below as well. Appreciate you guys. I'll see you in the next one.